Evan, welcome back, and thank you for staying for this great session with all our assistant governors.
Thank you.
District Governor-elect Caroline and I would like to welcome back all the assistant governors from the Northeast Pets team of folk from across the 7 districts, and might I add some of our guests beyond districts who weren't able to attend other pets. In these times, more than ever, getting the word out about Rotary is such a fabulous player in our communities locally and abroad is really critical. COVID has kept many less connected to clubs and local influences pretty much in the lurch. The best plans for each of us has made us pivot many, many times. Your upbeat, casual, yet knowledgeable and relaxed sense of connecting to communities through public image has reached just about every phone and computer in the Rotary world at one point or another. Words of wisdom on how our AGs can help clubs are most welcome. And through the session, AGs, please use the chat feature. You were familiar with this format yesterday, located at the bottom of your screen to write questions and send to everyone so all can see. We will note questions not answered and get back to you individually in due course. And Evan, after your remarks, Carol and I will field questions to you. So just let us know when you're ready for that. And over to you, Evan. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. I picked up on the for a second there. I thought, oh, were you talking about me? I didn't. I thought I don't know. I was zoned out for a second there, but I heard like casual approach. And I thought, yes, that's definitely me. Look, I haven't prepared a presentation. The presentation that you saw, I haven't prepared something specific for the AGs. But what I want to do is sort of throw a bit of an exercise, something for you all to think about. And I'm very happy to answer any and all questions that you have. And I kind of would prefer to have a bit of an open Q&A. But something to think about is as AGs, and I've never been an AG. For the record, I've never even been the public image director for the district. Not for lack of trying. So I can't say I've been in some of your shoes before, but I kind of seem to sort of know my way around it. But let me put something to plant a little seed in your mind when you start your roles in July, is how you can use the theme Imagine Rotary as a way to encourage your clubs to take that upon themselves to sort of help promote their club a little bit more, use that as sort of a kind of springboard into sort of helping them promote the club. So perhaps this could be something that you might like to think about, how you can sort of use that as a talking point when you're doing your club visits as AGs, or when you're trying to, rally the troops, so to speak. Think about Imagine Rotary. I know Jennifer Jones is very behind how she came up with that is really quite inspiring. And to be honest, it certainly has a bit more of a personal touch than some of the previous ones, not to denigrate them. But the personal connections is the Australian Aboriginal Indigenous artist created the actual theme, and to tie in with the Melbourne convention, which is happening in Melbourne, Australia in 2023, which I hope to see you all there. So, think about how you can sort of incorporate that. So with that, Tari, Caroline, I'm happy to open up to a couple of questions and sort of kickstart the discussion about something, and then we can sort of go on that wonderful, yellow brick road to wherever it leads us.
Sounds great, Evan.
Or the rabbit hole, so to speak.
Oh, no problem. The way it worked yesterday, just so you know, Caroline and I sort of tag team back and forth, but we actually got a couple of questions ahead of time while people were thinking about what you proposed to chat about. And so I've got this one to sort of throw at you. So nowadays, there are opportunities to link all our social media sort of as one post. And oftentimes people do that. They link their Facebook, their Instagram, and that type of thing. Is there a danger that the feeds, you will have too much repetition of the same thing with simultaneous posts if you do that? And should posts be customized to a particular audience that tends to be more, TikTok, Instagram, Rotary, other Rotary outlets? Thank you, Evan.
Sure. Okay. So mea culpa, I have been known to post the same things on Instagram and Facebook, just out of ease, really. I mean, I post more often than what a normal Rotary Club would post, but I've kind of got into that habit and people kind of expect it. But sometimes what I'll do is I'll post, say I've been to an event and I take a couple of photographs. So the photograph I post on Facebook is not the same photograph that I'll post on Instagram, but it's at the same thing. So, or, you know, maybe I'm meeting a Rotary International, maybe I'm meeting Alex Falk, for example, right? My good friend Alex, who I will be visiting next year in Connecticut. Hopefully, we still haven't found another district to pick me up the week before, but we will. But perhaps I have a photograph with, I've got my hand around Alex like this, and I post this photograph on Facebook, and then I take another photograph and my hands around Alex on this side, and I do this, and then I post that photograph up on Instagram. So it's the same photograph, but just a little bit different. But yes, I agree. Tailoring your audience and how receptive they are on the different social media feeds is quite important. Certainly TikTok is very youth focused and video focused and all meme and dancing and different bits and pieces, you know, voiceover, voice syncing sort of stuff. So I'm not sure how you can make it work for your club, but that's more of an individualistic thing. But Facebook, I think, is where our energy should be focused on a little bit. And yes, keeping that sort of content diverse enough that it generates interest.
Awesome. Caroline, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Evan. So Evan, I'm Caroline Earl. I've heard for years about your presentations, but never actually experienced it. So I just have to tell you that there was one particular slide that had me laughing so much it was rather unseemly. I'll let you guess which slide that was, but it was
honestly, it could be like 10, 20.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you. Thank you, Evan.
No worries.
So I'm going to ask a quick question, and then I'm going to refer to a question in the chat. My quick question is, the burning question on everyone's mind in the chat was, where did you get the jacket? Where did you get the suit, pants, and the jacket? So that was the first one. And then the second one, and a more directed question, is, could you address, Evan, the use of the presidential theme, because there's been some discussion about using it internally to motivate versus externally. Thanks.
Do you mind if can we save the jacket talk for the very end? You know,
yes.
At least I know if everybody wants to hear about it, they'll all still stay on the chat and not leave, so they'll hang until the end. Okay, now this is about the internal use, external use, all the rest of it. Okay, I don't know now. I can't say here from the horse's mouth, right? But whatever you heard about the theme being internal only, it's bullshit. Okay, bullshit. Okay, absolute bullshit. I'm Australian. I'm going to tell it to you straight. If RI spent so much money, not necessarily money, but spent so much effort and time putting that stuff out there, getting pins made, getting stuff put on bags and shirts, you know, do you think it's just for internal use only? You would think Rotarians would know the difference between what's internal and what's external, considering the age demographic of some. It's both. Okay, it's used as a motivational tool for all of us, but it's also used as an external tool for us to have something for us to talk about. So to get things in the news media, it's our campaign launch for our product for that's the year, which is essentially us. Now, of course, there's service above self, and there's this and there's that and all the rest of it. But it's just like a McDonald's menu. You've got the Big Mac, you've got the quarter pounder, you've got the cheeseburger, all these different little things. If it helps us connect with that person or someone who might not necessarily know about Rotary and they resonate to it, then it's done its job. Okay, so it's both. It's externally focused or facing because, you know, Rotary International puts it out on their public facing social media channel, you know, went out to on their Facebook page, which has, I think, like 700,000 followers. So of course it's external. So anyone who tells you otherwise, you do direct them back to me, and I would be all too happy to argue with Rotarians. It's something that I, particularly ones that seem to, you know, I put them in their place. Happy to do that. But look, what I'm going to say is think about it as AGs or as club presidents, how you can best use the theme as a talking point to generate, you know, potential new members from it.
Thank you, Evan.
Thanks, Evan. So it's always a compliment to you when all my colleagues as DGEs have stayed on for your section in the AG format. I've got one from my colleague, Victor Tom. Can you comment on the best format of TikTok short videos versus 1-minute YouTube videos for telling Rotary story on service projects?
Okay, people have short attention spans. Okay, we're all used to flicks. So I would say short videos are the best. Even 30, like when you think about it, when you're watching television, now a lot of us obviously stream, so we don't see too many TV commercials, but you'll note that most TV commercials, probably the max they go for is about 30 seconds. So if you can encapsulate everything that you want to say in 30 seconds and have it bright and punchy, then you're going to capture someone's attention. No one is going to hang on to a 1 minute YouTube video unless it's your Rotary Club is somehow giving Minecraft or Fortnite gaming tutorial instructions, or trailer reviews or something else like that. People have very short attention spans. So and particularly with TikTok and the way TikTok is the social media is structured, you can put floating words and obviously music or different audio back to it and other bits and pieces, and you can sort of talk a bit more about your project. So it's better off to have 6 30-second clips than one 5-minute clip.
Great. Evan, is there still a place for the classic press release? And what are your thoughts about suggestions for submissions to local print media?
Yes, of course. Certainly in Sydney, there's not too many local newspapers anymore. Most of it's gone online. But if in your area, if there are still some community newspapers, I would think press releases are great. Remembering that most of what you put in a press release, reporters nowadays are not very, very happy just to basically print verbatim what you've put or add their own little twist, half the time taking out the most important bits you want to say. But no, I do think that's important. It's important to, don't send them a big check stuff, because they've sent it all before and they'll never post it. They'll never put it printed, I mean. Yeah, press releases are great. But the thing that I'm trying to instill in people is use social media and have that mindset for the same amount of energy as you would if you were going to put a press release and send it to a newspaper or a news media. If you're thinking in that frame of mind about what you're putting up on social media, you're going to have far more traction with that than what you would with the press, but still do that anyway.
That's great. Oh, my question just slid up the screen there. Let me just go. A lot of great feedback coming in. This one's a great one. It comes from Ron Block in an AG. It says, it seems that clubs have to reinvent the wheel on so many projects. Do you have examples, or I guess thoughts in general, of multiple clubs working together on public relations projects?
Yeah, well, for example, in my slide, you saw the big billboards with the Be the Good. So that was a lot of Rotary clubs that got together, put some money in, and I think also one of the club members from one of those clubs actually owned that billboard or had some connections with it, so that they were able to get a better deal or something up there. So see, public image for Rotary doesn't just benefit one club; it benefits obviously Rotary the whole, in general, but it also benefits all the clubs together. So if you've got, I'm not sure if you guys call them clusters or whatever they're called, areas, whatever. If you're able to convince the club presidents from the areas that the AGs are looking after, and get them all on board with a public image campaign to promote themselves. Now that could be, allocating some money towards some outside public relations stuff like the billboards, or as well as some targeted social media campaigns, so paid targeting through social media. So for example, say I think I can only think of Avon, Connecticut as a town in Connecticut that I visited. A friend of mine named Alma lives there, but just say Avon, there's a couple of clubs in that area. You could all get Facebook to target people who are specifically living in that area. And you pay the money to target men and women between 30 and 60 or whatever, who live in that specific geographic area, and you use the collateral that you've come up with, be it Imagine Rotary or People of Action, be the Good, or something that you think might respond or resonate a little bit more with your community audience, and spend a little bit of money on that. It could be, I would say, when I say spend a little bit of money, I probably would say like about $2,000 if you're getting money thrown in between a couple of different clubs, and hopefully it would generate some leads. But the thing is, with all this stuff, and when I talk about I'm now moving a little bit away from from, and I'll just jump on my soapbox for a second. All this great stuff that we might be doing for public image or the rest of it, it's only good if we actually follow up the leads it generates. You know, like any good business, if someone's interested in joining our club and they've seen the stuff that we've put out, but then nobody reaches out to them or nobody responds to their comment or the message that they send to the Facebook page, no one bothers to give them a phone call, then basically everything that we're doing is for naught. So, you know, it's really important that, you know, everybody who wants to get on board with something like this is then able to follow up on those leads.
Yep.
Evan, can you speak to another traditional Rotary sort of practice, which is the handouts at service events, the physical pamphlets? What are your thoughts on those?
Most of the time, you know, most of the time it ends in the trash. Or if you've got a large event and you've given out flyers, I'd always just wait till the end of the event and send out a member to go pick up all the flyers that have been tossed on the ground or thrown, you know, and reuse them. Look, I would say those flyers would be better off put, you know, in for local businesses or sort of, you know, at like a doctor's or, you know, medical practitioner's office or something like that, if there is an event coming up, to sort of, you know, use that sort of stuff. I still think there is still some value in that, but remember, again, people's attention spans, people aren't really, we're so used to being instantaneous on social media things and flicking and all the rest of it that, you know, half the time they get a flyer. So you've got to, again, you've got to be targeted to, you know, what you're actually targeting and what the use is for that. Is it going to be for general club promotion? I'd suggest there'd be better ways to use, you know, do flyers, or is it for a specific event that you've got coming up, which I think would be a lot better, you know, use. So if you've got a, you know, say you run a spring carnival, you know, rides and amusements or that thing, if that's what your club does, then, you know, and it's a couple of months away, then yes, of course, flyers for that, promotional posters in the windows of businesses and different things would be great for that. Again, followed up or backed up with social media.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So one of our district governor nominees, Christine, says, we would like to increase the number of followers on our social media sites. Do you have any ideas of campaigns to implement for this strategy?
It's a tough one. Facebook's kind of pushed down a little bit. I mean, yeah, I've got my Changemaker page is 27,500 followers, but I've been at 27,500 followers for the best part of about 6 months, which is kind of unusual, but makes me think that perhaps, you know, the following and likes and things like that aren't as prosperous as they once were, or Facebook is not allocating or not tweaking their algorithm to sort of benefit that. It can be quite difficult to pick up likes and things. But again, what I said at the start of my presentation, it's not about the like. It's not about how many people like your page or like your posts. It's about what kind of positive story you're putting out there. So I would say don't feel, is the word dissuade? I don't know. Don't feel upset if you're not getting the response that you thought you would. It's just a constant battle to put things out that gets people's attention. But again, what I would say is I would suggest all club members like your club's Facebook page. That's a start. Share posts that your club puts out on people's own personal Facebook or Instagram or TikTok pages. That's really important. So what that means is if, say, for example, you've got an event coming up, it's posted on your club's Facebook page, and then all your club members, say 50 club members, then share that to their own networks, their own Facebook friends. So that means, say, a club member has 300 Facebook friends, well, potentially those 300 Facebook friends who would not normally gravitate towards your Rotary Club's Facebook page might see that. And that's kind of how you generate a bit more interest and a bit more buzz. The other thing is that if you've posted something on your Facebook page and it's done really well, you might have picked up 100 likes or 1,000 likes or something, you do have the ability to click on those likes and see the individual names of those people who've liked something that you've posted, and you can invite them to like your page. And that generally will pick up a few extra likes as well. Kind of a bit like, you know, like fishing with a net. You sort of throw the net in and hope you'll grab a couple on the way out. So.
Wonderful. And so, Evan, another question, we've encountered this in my club as well, and Corey Jackson asked this question in the chat. Given that club leadership changes year to year, How do you deal with changing usernames, passwords? How do you manage social media accounts in a way that creates continuity for clubs?
So what I would suggest is on social media Facebook pages, generally they're not well, not necessarily run by the club president, but I would say that there should be some people involved who would continue looking after it into the following year. So I'd suggest one thing that I would, as AGs, I would ask clubs, do you have a little social media committee for your club? Or, you know, how many people do you have running your website or running your social media pages? If the answer is one, then I would really suggest you say to them, look, I think it's important that you have somebody else on it as well, because numerous times, and people have spoken to me about it, a club member, disaffected club member has, decided to leave because, the club does the Pledge of Allegiance, or now it doesn't, and they've got upset about it and they've left. And they don't want to hand over, or the club, they don't want to hand over the Facebook page to a new person. So you're sort of stuck. Oh, okay, well, we've locked out, or they've been hit by a bus, and oh yeah, Frank, he died last week and he was the only one who looked after our Facebook page and no one else can do it. So, and Facebook is not going to help you get access back to that club page. So it's important to add some administrators or some contributors to Facebook and Instagram, that sort of thing, as well as your website too. And also, it's really important that these people that are looking after these things, it's important for the club leadership to make them feel appreciated, because remember, these people are running your Facebook page. This is the public face of your club. If people are upset, who's to say that they couldn't put, the president's an asshole? You know what I mean? Not that anyone would, but who's to say they can't? So it's important to make people feel appreciated for the work that they're doing, and that's through everything, but especially for the social media people.
Thank you.
So Evan, I have slightly tricky internet today for some reason. I think they're doing construction in the area, so if I drop off, Caroline picks up for me, so I apologize. Here's a comment that has some things to think about. Youth is the target market for so many clubs in terms of that. We also tend to emphasize the scholarships, the awards, the RILA, and more that we are involved in. Where there is the issue of child privacy and safety on the internet, are there some best practices you would advocate for to include, which obviously do include parental permission and photography for posting, but any other thoughts in general?
Yes, I would say as a club, for individual clubs should have their own kind of waiver forms for using photographs. And that should not just be necessarily for people, under the age of 18 or whatever it is, but also just for, members of the public who, to sign a form. Is it okay if we used your photograph? Obviously for club members, if it's only just club members showing, well, that's fine. Yes, it is a tricky one. Your first part of your question is that I hear this all the time, that Rotary clubs and club members and club leadership and RIRS, obviously we're focusing on trying to get younger members into Rotary, but my thoughts are we should just focus on trying to get people into Rotary, regardless of how old they are. Because someone who's 18 can do a lot. Someone who's 80 can also do a lot too. So yes, I think the biggest thing is that clubs are like, oh, we've got a club full of 80-year-olds and we're trying to get younger members. Well, I would start by trying to attract 60-year-olds rather than 20-year-olds, because a 20-year-old's not going to join a Rotary club with 80-year-olds, but a 60-year-old might. Okay, so think about that. But yes, it's always a bit tricky as far as sorts of children and that sort of thing are concerned, particularly on stuff on social media, legalities and all the rest of it. I would make sure that, you've got forms or waivers or things signed if you're planning on using it. Is there a way of being able to tell the story without having to rely on a photograph, perhaps? There's those sorts of things to think about. Yeah, I mean, I can't really go into any much more depth or detail than that. It's in Australia, we have in New South Wales, where the state that I'm in, a Child Protection Authority. So for clubs who want to interact with children under the age of 18, we have to sort of go through child protection training and forms to fill in and things like that to make sure that nothing's untoward. Obviously, things might be totally different in different parts of Canada or in the United States as well. So.
Evan, can we go back to kind of the basic foundation? Why is promoting public image important for a club? Because we still have skeptics out there.
If you don't promote your club, how do you expect people to know about you?
Why is it important they know about us?
Well, if you want your clubs to continue, if you don't want your clubs to die and turn off the light, then shouldn't that be a great motivator? I mean, that's if clubs are quite happy just to have their 15, 20 members, they don't really want any new members. And the thing, I would think though that, in 10 years time, and that's probably being very generous, if their club folds, they shouldn't be going, oh gosh, we don't know what happened. We don't know why we didn't do why the club we've decided to finally fold the club. And you ask them, well, did you promote yourself? Well, no. How you expect people to find out about you if you're not going to, like, it's same with any sort of product. If the iPhones, if how do you expect people to buy the new iPhone if they don't know the new iPhone's come out? It's all about marketing our stories. It's all about, and when I say people like, oh, well, we should be focusing more on helping people and doing good works in the community rather than spending money on social media or fixing our signs. And I totally agree with that. But it's going to come to a point that same people in the club are going to get a bit tired of helping, people in the community because they're the only ones doing it, and there's no other club members or no other new lifeblood coming in. So the best way to attract new lifeblood is to get out there and refresh signs in the community, put stuff out on social media, tell people about how good your clubs are and what they're doing and the great things of the work that you're doing in the community. That's how you get new members. That's how you bring some new blood and new ideas and all the rest of that in. Honestly, on this issue, I can't believe there's still skeptics out there, but there are skeptics in Rotary for everything. People, like, for example, last at our luncheon last Wednesday, it's chicken Wednesday, but this week it's you normally have beef and they're serving chicken again. I can't believe it. They've served chicken twice in 2 weeks in a row. That's it. The Rotary's end for me. I'm handing in my membership after 300 years. I can't handle it anymore. I mean, come on, give me a break. So.
Some really awesome stuff coming in through the chat and the comments. Just to give your voice a 30-second rest there, because we're so fortunate to have you for a big chunk of time today. I'm just going to point out a couple of them. To the previous comments you were talking about, Evan, also in protection of seniors from scams. That's also an important thing to protect our seniors when we're posting things out there. Let's see, another great.
Well, just to touch on that, and that's really important. And I think that would be something that clubs, if you do individual district training or AG training, is constantly talk about that. Because yes, of course, even in my dad, for example, has nearly been scammed by somebody saying, oh, look, your account's been, bank account's been breached. We need to get your credit card number and all this other kind of stuff. So it's important information to kind of tell people that, explain the scams, that people aren't going to ask for this sort of stuff over the phone, and don't give people remote access to your computer. Talk to your children, grandchildren so much about this if you feel something's wrong, and all that other kind of stuff. That's important.
Thank you, Evan, on that. And just the other comment I was going to talk to is making sure that your posts have translate ability attached to them, because oftentimes on Facebook you don't actually have your translate option turned on, so that if somebody wants to read it in a market that we haven't tapped as much, for example, the Hispanic market, membership is really quite low in at least in our New England area in general. And that would be a great way to make sure that posts can be read in multiple languages, that the translate feature is turned on. Let's see, one question for you, and then we'll go back to Caroline. Let's see, how do you feel about involving Interact students in the Rotary Club social media work?
I think that's really important to involve that, and the reason why is it creates a relationship and a connection with your Interact students. And that's really important. If you can build upon a connection with the younger generations and stuff like that, and they feel like they're being of some use to you, or they're like, oh, hey, that's great, we can partner with doing something. That's important. I think Interact students would be great if your club wants to feature on TikTok and that sort of thing. I know it's quite funny, but there's nothing better than seeing someone over the age of 60 doing weird sort of dances and things that aren't normally done by people of that age group, and they're being encouraged by younger, your grandchildren or whatever else. It's fun, it's funny, and it can stimulate some sort of conversations and stuff like that. So yes, I think reach out to your Rotaractors and Interactors, build upon some relationships, and seeing if they can add some of their hints and expertise on an area which you guys might be sadly lacking in, which some might be on social media. So I'm not saying for them to do it for you, but it's good to sort of include them and see what ideas they might have.
And then if a club is just starting its social media journey, where do you suggest they start? What's a concrete first step for them?
Would be setting up a Facebook page for their club. That's the first thing. I would suggest basically Facebook. If having all these other channels, it's just something else that someone else has to do. I would, if they're only just new, I would just set up a Facebook page, because a Facebook page is basically just like your club's website. It's not just like your club's website, but it's just as important. So people aren't sort of now, no one's saying, oh, we don't need a website anymore, because obviously we know that we do. So a website and then your Facebook page basically go hand in hand. It's just, there's no discussion. Your club has to have it. And the good thing is about social media is that it's interactive, and it's more things are going out on it. So it could be on a daily basis or a weekly basis, while your website is quite static and not much happens to that. Your website's just basically like the front page of a newspaper. Things might change, but it's just who, what, where, when, and why on your website. And your Facebook page is kind of where you're telling the story about your club, what your club's up to, who's your speakers, who your members are, events that are coming up, things to donate, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Thank you.
You may or may not have the answer to this question, but we can also research it more in our districts, because I think it's very important. Which is better, Facebook ads or Facebook boost?
I would say Facebook ads are quite important, because it forces you to create some kind of a campaign and a strategy about what you're actually wanting to put out there. A boost is you're just basically boosting a post that you've put up. So, say for example, Darth Vader came to our club yesterday. It was great to have him there. We're going to boost that post, which means you're paying money to Facebook for a few more people to see it than they normally would. But if you're paying for ads, it means you're having to sort of create content, create a campaign around that. And it means Facebook kind of prioritizes that a little bit more than just a general boost.
Evan, this is a great question from Van. How do we differentiate ourselves on social media from other organizations that do good?
It all depends on the stories that you tell. You look at your competition and what are they talking about? And if you see what they're talking about is the same thing that you're talking about, then maybe it's time for you to talk about something else. It is a competitive market, trying to attract volunteers to help out with things. And a lot of people, believe it or not, we're all inherently, selfish. We all want to know what's in it for us, kind of thing, even if we say that we don't, because, we want connections, we want to meet people, we want to help people. So we want to find what's appealing to us and what makes the Lions Club different than what we do, and how do we do that. So in social media, again, it's just about, I would say, showcasing your members, showcasing what your club's doing, what your projects are, the positivity about it, the benefits about being involved in your club, the connections that you can make. And again, it's about the stories that you're telling. It's really simple as that.
I just wanted to mention one thing that happened at our club recently, which is an adjacent town asked to duplicate one of our service projects, one of our new initiatives that we did during the COVID period. And my club members, and to do so, they needed to borrow some equipment that we had purchased. And our club member, a couple of our club members were a little like, well, why are they doing it? Why don't we do it? And I said, wait a second, we've just become an influencer. We've just influenced other people to kind of take up projects similar to what we've done. Is that a fair, do we want to be influencers kind of? Is that?
Yeah, of course you do.
Defined?
Yeah, but people have called me that, like a Rotary influencer and all this other kind of stuff. Yeah, sure. Yeah. If it gets people to become involved in your club or come involved in Rotary, that's great. The biggest issue I find though, with particularly with RI though, is that the conversations that they want it to be a bit more corporate and a bit more controlled. So myself and there's a few others out there that kind of break the mold a little bit, kind of upset the apple cart. And, you know, but what a corporate doesn't understand is that some people might respond much better to me and me speaking in my own way, my own authentic self, than they would like with a message. Say RI gives me a message to say, and I say it in my way and do it in a different way, they're going to respond much more to me than they would just a normal corporate message coming out there. And that's something that I don't know if RI's really, or the staff have really grasped the idea of these Rotary influencers and thought provokers and all that kind of thing. But, you know, you see other bigger brands, McDonald's and Coke and others, have sort of reached out to people who are a bit more famous on TikTok to help sell their product a bit more, and all this other kind of these quasi fake 15-minute celebrities, you know what I mean? So it is a battle to sort of put the stuff out there.
Thank you.
I did see a quick question where it said about interactors are minors and they need adult supervision. And yeah, that's true. I do agree with that. But on the flip side, if you're, you know, seniors and you're talking to a guy from India who wants your bank account details and you're giving it to them, perhaps you guys might be the ones who need supervision rather than the opposite way around. But again, you know, it's like when you're dealing with minors and stuff like that, of course, it's, you know, it's what you're doing and how you're doing it and all that other kind of stuff. But, you know, certainly the generations coming up below us are a hell of a lot more smarter and organized and world, you know, understand of the world than we were ever were. That's for sure.
I'm going to talk behind the scenes here to our tech. Alexander, I think there's a couple of people with the raised hands and I don't see them. Can I get them on my screen where I can see them?
I think
it was just one person, and Caroline asked her to post a question chat.
Oh, awesome.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. So here's a great one. Kellyanne Delorier says, hi, Evan. Thoughts on including ongoing social media posts highlighting our Rotary areas of focus, such as water, literacy, environment, etc., to create interest in sharing our worldwide collective efforts? Thank you.
I'm going to go back up to read that question. Yeah, I think that's really important. Yeah, again, that's. I mean, you that question is kind of a self-answered one. It just makes sense. The question that you've asked, it's not too much to comment on it, but except to say that yes, if you are focusing on the areas of focus and the projects that you do, it certainly creates something that we don't necessarily have to deviate from. You know, it's hard to sort of win the battle and to get eyeballs on whatever you're posting on the internet. But yes, if you're partnering with other clubs or you know, Rotary has these areas of focus. If your club's working in a particular area like that, it's something great to talk about. Or, you know, yes, if we've got nothing else to talk about, those 6-7 areas of focus now are things, or Rotary areas of focus are things that we should be focusing on and creating stories around that.
And Evan, Christine asks, or notes, I guess, observes that there's a balance between talking about ourselves and what we do and talking about the folks that we have impact on. And I wondered if you could speak a little to that balance, our actions and the impact of our actions.
Yeah, and that's a good question, coming from someone who talks about himself. Yes, there is a fine line. There is a fine line with that. Sometimes I do think it's important that we focus a little bit more about the big check, about the money that we're giving, rather than what's happening once the money's been given and where that money goes and what's been done from that. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the time we're always like, hey, we've just given $100,000 to this local community organization that are going to be, you know, doing planting and doing something for the disabled community and making playgrounds and blah, 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 blah. And yet we focus on that big check that we've given and we all feel good about that. But then a year later, once this project's been completed or once it's on its steps, we don't really talk about that. So I think we need to reframe the mindset and focus less about the big check and more about where or what we're doing and how it's actually impacting in that community. So for example, if you are giving money away or if you are working on a project, people love highlights. They love to see the process or the progress of the project that's happening. You know, take behind the scenes. Say if you are building a playground, you know, take shots you know, of it being built or whatever else, and you know, progress updates. And thank you so much for donating that $100,000, and this is where the money's going to, and blah 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 blah. That's kind of what people are interested in.
In light of all the big checks out there, Evan, that sounds like a great opportunity for any club to start a social media process or presence. Look at your clubs, those big checks you've handed out the last year, and figure out what was done with them, and then you go and report back on it. So
I would hope they would have cashed, but yeah, you know, like we focus a lot about us, you know, us as the giving, and oh, aren't we good, giving us the pat on the backs, aren't we good that we've just done this. That's great, but that might appeal to some type of people, but it's not going to appeal to everybody. And I think people want to see that, yes, Rotary, look, what I don't want us to sell is particularly meetings, because no one's interested in just coming to a meeting. They want to see, if they're going to come along to a meeting, what kind of impact they're going to have. So it's important for us to sell that kind of, you know, that we're able to do good, and what we're doing is helping people. I use the McDonald's analogy a lot when I describe it. It's like when you go to McDonald's and you're waiting in line and you're looking at the board and you see how big the Big Macs are and everything looks so great. And obviously it's all the food photography. Everything's so amazing. And you go, oh, I'll have that. That's great. And then when you get it at the Big Mac, you're like, what the hell is this? What? You know, like it doesn't match what's on the board. And sometimes we fall into that trap in Rotaries, that we're kind of overselling that, you know, we're ending polio when we're doing good in the world and da, 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 da. But then the delivery of it is come along to our luncheon where we're pledging and singing and dinging and praying and eating and laughing and giving out money and happy bucks and doing all this stuff. But, oh yeah, we only have one project a year and it was 6 months ago and we're not really doing anything else but eating chicken and doing this stuff. People are going to walk straight back out that door. So it's important for us to think about how what we are selling compared to what we're actually delivering.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Thank you, Evan. So I'm going to make this one turn this one a little more personal around here. So with my Kiwi background and your Australian background, we do have a little bit of a rivalry in rugby and cricket and all that. But I must say that when I saw the Imagine Rotary theme come out, you know, it brought tears to my eyes, the history behind it, the story of it. And to your question at the beginning, when you saw that theme come out, what did you feel? What were your initial thoughts of what can we do with this?
I thought it was, I could tell that it wasn't made by in-house Rotary, first straight up, because it doesn't look like the same old stuff. And it did have that sort of Indigenous appeal. And I thought it was just a good opportunity that doesn't sort of, you know, it's such an open-ended theme, Imagine Rotary, and you can imagine it whatever you want because our imaginations are expansive about it all. So yeah, for me, it looked like something that was quite easy to work with, to be able to sort of share Rotary a little bit more than, you know, building, what was one from a couple of years ago, building bridges and bridging continents and you know, and sowing the seeds of love was a fantastic theme from like 20 years ago. I love that. But, you know, like some of these themes kind of just hit and some of them don't. But yeah, I think with Imagine Rotary, to me, it sort of was quite inspiring. And you know, certainly with Jennifer Jones being the first female Rotary International president. And with that, she's trying to get Rotarians to imagine something a little bit bigger than what we have before, and, you know, how we sort of, you know, move forward into the future.
So from a practical perspective, Evan, this is a question that I hear asked a lot, and I ask it myself. What is the baseline for posting on social media that will get you at least some engagement and move your club forward with having that presence that we're talking about?
I would say 3 times a week, post 3 times a week. Yeah. You know, showcase one of your club members, showcase what's happening, what your club is doing in the community, or what, you know, either be it internationally or locally. Remember, you know, you're not going to attract international people to come along and be members of your club, but you will attract local community people. So local community people want to see what's actually you're doing in the local community, who your speakers are, perhaps, you know, talk about news in the community. But, you know, sometimes, you know, Rotarians are a good trusted source of things that are happening in the community. You know, for example, say there's a natural disaster, or you've had I mean, not so much in your area, but certainly in the Midwest, they've got cyclones or something coming through. So people will use the Rotary Facebook page as a way to reach out to those disaffected in the community, or ways of how to raise funds, or hands on the grounds helping people, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think you know, 3 times a week is pretty good, and certainly more if you've got more things to talk about. But if you've only got, you know, 100 people who've liked the page, then, you know, people don't want to be spammed. They don't want to get, you know, 10 things as soon as they open it. So, you know, it's good to sort of spread that stuff out, and you can post things in the morning, post things in the evening, and shake it up a little bit. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you, Evan.
So Evan, signage, and I know you've talked a lot about it on social media over the years and posted some great examples. As you come and go from towns, I mean, some of the signs look like something that's morphed into abstract art, or sort of a rusty existence of its former self. If you could talk a little bit about that and its true value.
Well, in some respects, people driving through your town, it might be the first particular interaction that they have with your club. Now, if you most certainly towns in America have a, you know, welcome to town sign, and they'll have you know, Rotary, or they'll have Kiwanis and all this sort of stuff. Now, if your sign is looking a little bit tired, and all the other signs are looking a little bit tired, and you go in there and, you know, sometimes you ask permission, sometimes, certainly in Australia, they don't, whatever else, you go in there and you fix the sign, either a case of painting it bright yellow or taking it out and putting in something new. I guarantee you, people driving past are going to go, hang on, something looks a little bit different, because all the other signs are all bland and drab and don't look any good, but the Rotary signs, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Oh, Rotary, you know, hey, I might, yeah, that's right, my grandfather was in Rotary, I might check it out, I might think about it, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, that's why I think it's, you know, signage and stuff that's outside is important, because it makes us, it shows that we're not invisible. And that's the biggest issue that we have, or I find with Rotary, is that we are essentially invisible to people, because we, you know, people might not see us at our meetings or whatever else. The only interaction they would have with us if we're out in the community in our shirts or doing things, or there's signs out, you know, that's how we sort of stop being invisible. Because once we become invisible, then we might as well just close it down, because that'll be it. No, you know, no one will want to be involved anymore. So that's why I think it's important to sort of, but also too, like I say, and I push this point to clubs, you wouldn't let your house deteriorate. You know, you wouldn't let the front door hang off the hinge. You know, you obviously you want to try and fix, you want to try and, you know, so if you wanted to sell your house, you're going to try and give your house a lick of paint, rather than, you know, you might make an extra $10,000 from it. So it's the same thing for your signs and stuff. If your signs are looking drab, it's a reflection on your clubs. So it's, you know, go out there, and of course there might be, you know, issues with local government and other else, how you do it and blah, blah, blah. And of course, these are all insurmountable, but sorry, these you can get over these problems. But yeah, I think take stock as presidents, take stock in what you're putting out there in the public arena.
And Evan, I just want to draw everyone's attention to a comment that Betty posted, which is that posting to Facebook groups, other Facebook groups, has been phenomenal for her club to exponentially reach more people with their posts and get people engaged with their Rotary club. So just a tip for folks, make sure you look at the chat. There's a lot of good tips going on.
I must admit, I did not mention that. Yes, Facebook community groups for the towns that you live in. I would suggest all your club members should join these Facebook groups, and as your club should join, and, you know, try to befriend the administrators so that they'll approve and let posts go through from your club. And yes, it's a fantastic way of being able to communicate with a wider range, because these Facebook groups, for, like, I've got one in my own where I live in Hornsby. It's called like Hornsby Community Page or Hornsby Community Group. There might be, I think there's like 10,000 members in there who live in the Hornsby area. So it is a great way. And people say, oh, look, I saw this car driving past at a speed. You know, if it's your son, be sure to tell them about it. Or, hey, I've lost a dog. Someone knows where the dog is. Or I'm selling some plants and some cakes and things. And it's kind of become the community notice board. And certainly Rotary clubs having a presence in these community groups is a great way of showcasing themselves.
So people often, when they make a post, they say, please share. How important is it for people to actually share that actual post?
It's really important for them to share it. I wouldn't necessarily put please share in the post because that kind of reeks of desperation, but I would just put the onus on,
I've done that.
I would just put the onus on, people to share with their own networks. Yeah.
Evan, what about collaboration? Our group, for example, collaborates with a lot of local community groups. Rotary International has a much more formal collaboration now with Toastmasters, and they're promoting that. Can you talk about the balance between collaboration and making sure your brand isn't sort of subsumed within the other collaborators' brand? How do we maintain our distinction with collaboration?
Well, you just look at the polio with Bill Gates and all the rest of it, that like our Rotary's losing our identity with that. That is a very tough question to answer. And I don't know if I necessarily have the answers for it. Certainly as far as local clubs partnering with people in the community that have expertise is a great thing. Sometimes clubs have to actually pay. Like it's certainly in Australia, there's this mindset that just because it's Rotary, people should do it for free, and I think that's quite wrong. I think if you're not going to expect the plumber to come to your house and do some plumbing work for nothing, so if you want photographers or if you want marketing people to come along, be prepared to sort of give them a little bit of money to help them out or partner with some community people. And then, yes, of course, partnering with similar organizations to achieve some goals. It's trying to get that equal balance about who's getting their equal fair share of exposure, so to speak. I can't really comment too much more on that than what I've sort of just said, because it's always a battle about about being lost in the ether, so to speak.
But at least being aware of that. No, I was just saying, but at least being aware of that and sensitive to that, Evan, is what. Thank you, Tari.
I'll back up both of the comments there just by pointing out that the Brand Center has this great feature, and most people may know this, but for anyone who doesn't, that you can create what's called a lockup logo, which basically takes the Rotary logo, and any partner, as long as they give you permission to use the actual logo, goes next to yours, except that the Rotary one is first and very prominent. So it's a great way to have a professional piece that says this is the partnership, but it clearly has Rotary first on that lockup logo. And it takes about, Evan, about 10 seconds to create?
Yeah, if that.
Could you speak a little bit to the Brand Center and just how easy it truly is? People are still scared of it.
Sure. It's easy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm reading between the lines there that some of the things
look, it's easy enough.
Quite the way they should.
It's easy enough. It's easy enough, depending on what you want to do, what you want to look for. But the Brand Center is not the be all end all, for it all. Like I just use the Brand Center to get the logo for a club if I'm helping a club out with doing something, or want to find a video or something else like that. Like if I want to create graphics and things like that, I use like Canva and stuff, which is really good, or I do it myself on Photoshop and things. You'll see there's there'll be like there's people who create Rotary graphics. And there's who kind of well known in the Rotary world for creating graphics, and there's a varying slide of quality. Some will rave over people's whose quality I think is absolutely terrible, and I'm sure there'll be people who think what I put out is absolutely terrible. But there's some good stuff, and then there's some bad stuff. But the graphics group that I created, which about 6 or 7 years ago, is really a great resource for talking about public image and things like that, getting expertise from people, from volunteers, as well as information how to use the Brand Center a bit better. And I would suggest Tari or Alex, if you want to share that group through emails or however you want to do it, and encourage people to join, that would be great. It's certainly a good resource, that's for sure.
Evan, can you talk a little bit about the public image and our promotion of our image and the value that we provide as Rotarians and as clubs, and the membership dues? I had a Rotarian who was a younger member a couple of years ago, very tight budget, decided she couldn't continue because of the membership dues. And the way she put it to me, which I thought was really good information for us to have, was I don't understand paying a fee to volunteer my time.
Oh,
And so I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that.
I mean, I don't understand either. I don't understand. I really don't understand either. Look, make no mistake, Rotary International, it's a business, you know, and the business runs by membership fees to keep the staff employed and keep the projects running and keep this and doing and keep their websites up and da 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 da. We get it, you know, that's what it is. But it's all about value for money. If all that the clubs are offering is a meeting and not much else, then of course people don't want to spend however much money that they spend to join. And it is a struggle for me. I mean, I'm not particularly a wealthy person. I struggle with you know, paying rent sometimes. You know, it's hard to justify spending like $300 a year, what I do. Now, it doesn't sound much, you know, but sometimes when it comes around, you've got to find that money to pay. And you wonder, like, really is, you know, particularly through the COVID times, I was wondering, like, we're not doing anything. Is it really worth it? But the thing is that, see, that person who's left your club, see, that's a shame, because they might feel that they still want to be involved in Rotary, and they could find that there's some cheaper options or alternatives out there. There's international e-clubs and other things to keep them connected. But also, and this is really important, the reason why Rotary shouldn't be as expensive as it is, and we make it expensive because we insist on having the luncheon meals and paying the money for it and all this extra stuff. Really, in essence, it's like, what is it, $56 a year for RI dues, and then whatever it is for the district and stuff like that. You know, like, I was in a club that was a coffee club that met on a Sunday twice a month, you know, and the only money that we spent was like $5 that went towards the club each meeting, and the rest we decided whether or not how much money we wanted to spend at the cafe, whether we wanted a big lunch or no lunch or just a cup of coffee. But we were still able to get and do our Rotary business and do what we needed to do and still do in the community, and the cost was negligible at best. But again, it's just putting it out there on value, on where people see value. And I do know that, just, of course, for a younger generation, it's quite expensive, but there's also a lot of people who are in the older generation who, again, can't really afford it either. So, you know, it really just boils down to value for money. You know, how much value is spending $300 a year plus whatever else that you spend by being involved in Rotary? What's the benefit for me to do that, you know? So, and that is a question that you know, we'll always and have always grappled with. Yeah.
And look at my watch, we still have, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, for example, say, you know, like, we're 1.2 whatever it is million members, and we've been that for many years. And sometimes I wonder how many members we would have if we didn't have to pay, you know, like, so we'd probably be 10 million members.
Absolutely. We still have a little bit of time with you, so this is great. I'm talking with my district hat on, where my volunteer time has gone for the last couple of years and through next year as a DG. How important will it be for myself and the AG team to really have public image at the top of our agenda or close to it?
I do honestly think that public image really is one of the districts, should be the district's top priorities. Now, of course, people will argue that membership is, but I would say membership is just a little bit below public image, because you can't focus on membership without having a public image, you know, marketing strategy or a promotional strategy in place, because if you have that in place, then of course you'll pick up members from that. So they kind of work, I would say, essentially in tandem. But, you know, public image is incredibly important. And of course, people are going to argue, well, I'm not focusing all my time on fixing logos. It's, you know, it's not all about logos and all the rest of it. And I get that. But when you drive around your own communities, you don't see McDonald's restaurants looking like they did in the 1970s anymore, do you? They've been updated, they've been changed, the uniforms are all new, the branding's all new. It's the same with Rotary. Do we still want to look like, you know, an organization for the over 90s to come along, you know, and looking outdated and tired? That's not going to attract anybody. So it's important for us to kind of, you know, give ourselves a bit of a refresh and think of the mindset like, you know, our clubs can, you know, a little bit I'm not going to say all clubs are run down, but our club's a little bit run down, like our house, and we're giving it a lick and a promise and a paint, and we're going to put it on the market and try and sell it for a bit more than what we think we could get. It's just about selling ourselves a bit better and not feeling guilty about that.
I love the not feeling guilty about that, Evan, because I think that's a big piece, is that Rotarians in the past have felt that to boast about or to promote what you do is not humble, and that's part of, that's a challenge for some folks.
Being humble doesn't get members into your clubs. It doesn't, because if you keep quiet about it, how's anybody going to know about it?
Right.
And and that's I mean, and of some of the people here probably have that mindset of the way it was, but we're now in 2022, and that's the new generation. You see the generations coming through, people in their teens and 20s and all that. It's all on social media. Everything's on social media now. And we're all talking about it, and you might say, oh, that's all a little bit narcissistic. Well, yes, of course it is, but it's something that we've all just created ourselves. It's all just what it is. So instead of trying to fight against it and take it back to what it was, try and use it to our advantage and get some leverage out of it, and try to leverage some of these people and get them involved in helping others.
So Adele Hill has a great comment in the chat, and I wanted to form that to a question for you, Evan. She says, public image, TikTok is under scrutiny due to a child's death in Massachusetts on many news stations last evening. Does Rotary have a list of sites that should not be used due to scrutiny or other concerning practices? Are there any just, don't use it, don't go there?
Look, here's the thing about TikTok and that sort of stuff, and I don't know the story about the girl who died or whatever it was on TikTok and things like that. But remember, media companies see things like Facebook and TikTok as threats to their own conglomerates, particularly Rupert Murdoch, and certainly in Australia that people are getting their news or getting their information or spending more time on these platforms rather than theirs. So of course, sometimes some of these news articles and new things will beat up a particular social media brand or whatever, a company, for the sole purpose of trying to stop people from using it to focus on their things or whatever else like that. It's just the way it goes. Look, Facebook is okay, and it has its own issues. TikTok really is okay, but again, it's more of individualistic than it is for club stuff. But clubs are certainly a lot more Rotary clubs are appearing on it, and I would suggest go to TikTok if you use TikTok, and in the hashtag put Rotary Club and see what comes up. Things like LinkedIn are pretty good. Instagram's pretty good. Anything like Twitter's okay as well. Now, I mean, Australia, and this is a real hot button issue in the United States with Twitter and banning people and all the rest of this sort of stuff for their political things and all the rest of it. Whatever particular individual thoughts you have on that, you need to put them aside and focus on how it can be utilized for promoting your club, and Rotary. Okay, fine. You might be left leaning or right leaning or whatever, and you don't want to use some of these social medias. You don't have to use them yourself. That's fine, but you need to understand how they can be utilized and made and beneficial to promoting your club. And that's kind of what I want you to think about. So, but anything that's pushing sort of any sites that are kind of, I think there was one particular social media site which was kind of like a right-wing alternative to Twitter or something like that, but it was not very moderated. So there was kind of white nationalist stuff and other sorts of stuff that you wouldn't normally want to associate yourself with or Rotary with. These sorts of things, depending on I mean, again, I respect whatever particular political views that you have, but there are certain areas which you just know Rotary shouldn't be attached to any of this kind of stuff, be it religious stuff or be it that politically sort of stuff. You got to try and stay a little bit neutral. So anything that's causing that kind of controversy, I'd steer clear of. But also to remember, you don't want to be on TikTok, Instagram, this and this and that as your club, because it's all boils down to someone's responsibility to be able to look after it all and put stuff up on there. So my thing is just stick to Facebook, maybe have Instagram, and explore to see how TikTok could work for you. And basically, leave it at that. Leave it on the big boys. Leave it on the big ones.
Thank you.
So Thank you, Caroline. So Evan, we have about 5 minutes left, and to sort of bring it around to a happy note in many ways. We are coming out of a very difficult time with COVID. We have, unfortunately, the headlines are consumed with much happening in Ukraine and places like that. Mental health is one of the things that is impacting everyone, including all our Rotarians. How important is bringing fun and publicizing the fun that we have in Rotary, and sort of, many joke about, the 4-way test, the 5th one, make it fun.
Yeah, that should be it should be fun.
Just talk to that for a few minutes, and then at that point we'll wrap.
I definitely will. Yeah, fun, and that's why I sort of, the stuff that I put out, I put out stuff that I don't take myself too seriously. I put out jokey stuff and all the rest of it. I'm very serious about Rotary. But I don't take it all too seriously. I know the sort of the stuff that all happens around that, but fun really is important. Why do you think I've got a Rotary suit? I mean, it's all it is just to show the absurd. And I mean, the suit's terrible. It's terrible. It's a terrible suit. I mean, it fits perfectly. It's the most comfortable suit I've ever worn. But it's it's just an impact. It's just a conversation starter. It's just a sort of a something fun to do that most people. Because I'm an actor as well, so I'm a very confident person, and there's some people who aren't, and that's okay. But certainly showcasing fun is really important, really important. I see there's some comment, fun, yes, silly, no. Well, I disagree with Joe there. Silly's good too. Silly's good, and see this is where we battle into more of the generational human nature side of ourselves rather than anything else. And I see Vin's as well. Humility's, we're not politicians promoting ourselves as individuals. No, of course not. But sometimes, and I say this, that a lot of my friends who have supported Rotary, and they might not necessarily be Rotarians, have only got themselves or got a good view of Rotary because of the things that they see me putting myself forward for. Like people who see me as an individual with promoting Rotary and all the rest of it, they know that if I'm putting so much effort and passion in that I do, and the authenticity I do, they know that it's a worthwhile organization for them to donate to, or whatever they want to be involved in. We need to sort of get out of our own sort of stuck in the mud sort of stuff. The world's a depressing place, and we shouldn't be volunteering and going along to a Rotary Club that's just as depressed as the rest of the world. We need to showcase fun because people are looking for an outlet to enjoy themselves. I know Rotarians love wine and beer and all the rest of it, so and whatever. There's a multitude of ways of things. And one thing that we always forget about too, and this is really important for me to say, is with promoting Rotary, is promote the fellowships that we have in our organization: golfing, sailing, scouting, stamp collecting, all right, you name it, comic books. I don't think there's a comic book collecting one. The one that I made up, there's pin collectors. There's so many different niche interests that could appeal to potential new members who want to be involved, or even keep members involved in the club that they feel like, oh, I've been in Rotary, but I don't get too much out of it, but I'm an avid golfer. Hey, did you hear about the Rotary golf? Oh, no, I never knew about that. Bang, this is fun stuff, and this is what we forget about all the time. And it's important for us to talk about. And again, let me quickly say something about the Ukraine. And I find it amazing how sometimes RI can sort of drag the chain a bit on putting themselves to sort of stick to a cause, but it's great that Rotary has put out the stuff to help Ukraine, and certainly with the Rotary Foundation's put out that great post, so that, because people would ask me, or even I'm in Nigeria, or even I'm in New Zealand, I want to donate to help towards Ukraine. You seem to know everything about Rotary. Where do I go? Well, here's a great website that Rotary Foundation has set up, and it's going to help towards Ukraine and blah, 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 blah. And then I see the support of those of John Hugo, who's in a member of the Rotary Club in Ukraine, and hearing a bit more of the personal story about that. See, this is the sort of thing that keeps us all connected, and Rotarians sort of reaching out to Rotarians in Ukraine and all the rest of that, and trying to, sort of try to, doing our best to put peace forward and avoid World War III. So it really is a modern, it's all on social media, so it really is quite a modern, modern way of warfare, so to speak.
Evan, this has been amazing. I think everyone will agree. You would probably see everyone clapping, sort of quite strongly. You have one. Go ahead.
I forgot to tell about my suit. So real quick, 2 seconds.
Yes,
2 seconds.
Please.
Okay. So I would imagine most people have been to a convention before. If you're Rotary Tragic, like I've been to like 10 now, 10, yeah, I don't know, 10. So at the 2018 convention in Toronto in Canada, for many years I would see a lot of people from Africa, the women and men would wear these sorts of great dresses and things, and they'd have the Rotary logo and stuff on them. And I saw in the House of Friendship, there was a booth set up and people selling, you've got the Russell Hampton booth flogging their stuff, and then so you had this particular lady from the Ivory Coast in Africa, and she was selling material and shirts and stuff made with the Rotary logo and all the rest of it. So I went up to her and I said, "Hey, you don't happen to have like the material here, do you?" Yeah. She had a massive roll of it, and I said, "Well, I'll have enough. Can I buy enough to cover a circus tent, right?" And so it cost me like $80, and so I bought all this material. And I thought, I don't know, well, I might make a suit out of it or whatever else like that. And I never thought I'd do it, So I came back to Australia, and my ex-wife was not overly keen on the idea, but I kind of I came into a little bit of money, and so I sort of thought, you know what, I'm actually going to get this done. I'm going to get this done because I'm always thinking of new things, of ways of kind of trying to promote people and trying to irritate people and be it superhero stuff or move on to the next idea. So I went around to a couple of tailors in Sydney, and no one wanted to touch it with a 10-foot yard pole. No one was interested. We don't do anything like that. And so I found somebody who used to work for the opera in the UK and Opera Australia, and she was a costume designer, and she'd long since retired, but she did a little bit of tailoring and embroidery stuff as a side business. So I spoke, and she was massively eccentric. Like when I walked into her house, she had a chainsaw on top of her kitchen cupboard. What she's using it for in the kitchen, I don't know. But she was, as we would say in Australia, she was a little batshit crazy. Anyway, I told her about this. I wanted to make the suit out of the Rotary thing. And she, great, that's a fantastic idea. So she measured me up, and about 2 months or so later, the most well-crafted suit I've ever worn, and all the Rotary stuff actually matches. So she spent so much time and care on turning it in. She knew exactly what it's for. It's a costume. So when I put it on, it's my performance piece. I'm a performance artist. I get out there and it's my costume, and it's really, everywhere I've go, it's generated love and hate and all the rest of it in between. I really wanted to wear it at the convention in Hawaii, but obviously that got cancelled. But I'm looking forward. I don't know how well it's going to go in Houston. It's going to be as hot as hell in Houston, but I'll wear it there, and I'm sure I will bring big smiles to some and upset smiles to others, and who knows what kind of havoc I'll cause. But look, at the end of the day, I'm really passionate about this organization. This organization has helped me in so many ways and given me so many opportunities. And sure, yeah, I get annoyed with it, not on a daily basis, but close enough to it with different things and different people and all the rest of it. But I still see the main goal is, and I can relate so much to Paul Harris, is that he wanted to start something that he didn't initially start something to change the world. He started something because he was missing something in his life, which was friendship and connections. He started that, and then it basically springboarded from there. So I joined Rotary to, meet a girlfriend and meet friends and changing the world kind of as a nice little after effect from that. And, you know, it's what keeps me passionate. And Rotary helped me 13 years ago when I lost my son, who was stillborn, raising funds for that. And, you know, there's just, you know, my life has been touched immeasurably by this organization, and I just love it. And I just wish some people would feel, you know, I wish people could catch my Rotary enthusiasm like they catch bloody COVID. You know, we'd have 10 million members. But yeah, you know, I'm just passionate about it. So yeah, thank you.
Evan, thank you. I mean, gosh, you know, all of it. Thank you for your time from the other side of the world.
2 o'clock in the morning.
Yep. Everyone can follow his Facebook page at Evan Burrell Changemaker, where he has close to 30,000 followers, as he's talked about before. An additional thank you to you, a print of one of Dallas's well-known landscape photographers, Steve Riella, son of Rotarian and major donor Nancy Riella, will be sent to you in Australia and celebrates the area of focus, the environment.